In typography, italic type is a cursive font based on a stylized form of calligraphic handwriting. Owing to the influence from calligraphy, such fonts normally slant slightly to the right. Italics are a way to emphasize key points in a printed text, or when quoting a speaker, a way to show which words they stressed. One manual of English usage described italics as the print equivalent of underlining. The name comes from the fact that calligraphy-inspired typefaces were first designed in Italy, to replace documents traditionally written in a handwriting style called chancery hand. Ludovico Arrighi and Aldus Manutius were the main type designers involved in this process at the time. Different glyph shapes from Roman type are usually used. Another influence from calligraphy and uppercase letters may have swashes, flourishes inspired by ornate calligraphy. An alternative is oblique type, in which the type is slanted but the letter forms do not change shape. This less elaborate approach is used by many sans serif typefaces. History. Italic type was first used by Aldus Manutius and the Aldine Press in 1500, in the frontispiece of an edition of Catherine of Siena's letters. According to Lintrus, Manutius invented the italic typeface, based on the humanist cursive script first developed in the 1420s by Niccolò da Niccoli. It served as a condensed type for simple, compact volumes. The punches for these types were cut by Francesco da Bologna. In 1501 Aldus wrote to his friend Scipio, "We have printed, and are now publishing, the satires of Juvenal and Persius in a very small format, so that they may more conveniently be held in the hand and learned by heart by everyone." Unlike the italic type of today, the capital letters were upright Roman capitals which were shorter than the ascending lowercase italic letters and used about 65 tied letters in the Aldine Dante and Virgil of 1501. The reason for the upright capitals was that at the time upright capitals were commonly viewed as inscriptional, and were often modeled on Roman stone carving. This Aldine italic became the model for most italic types. It was very popular in its own day and was widely imitated. The Venetian Senate gave Aldus exclusive right to its use, a patent confirmed by 3 successive popes, but it was widely counterfeited. The Italians called the character Aldino, while others called it italic. The slanting italic capital was first introduced by printers in Lyon. Examples. An example of normal and true italics text, the same example as oblique text. Some examples of possible differences between Roman and italic type, besides the slant, are below. The transformations from Roman to italics are illustrated. None of these differences are required in an italic. Some, like the P variant, do not show up in the majority of italic fonts, while others, like the A and F variants, are in almost every italic. Other common differences include double loop G replaced by single loop version, different closing height where the forked stroke intersects with the stem, bracketed serifs replaced by hooked serifs, tail of Q replaced by tilde. Less common differences include a descender on the Z and a ball on the finishing stroke of an H, which curves back to resemble a B somewhat. Sometimes the W is of a form taken from Old German typefaces, in which the left half is of the same form as the N and the right half is of the same form as the V in the same typeface. There also exist specialized ligatures for italics, such as a curl atop the S which reaches the ascender of the P in SP. In addition to these differences in shape of letters, italic lowercases usually lack serifs at the bottoms of strokes, since a pen would bounce up to continue the action of writing. Instead they usually have one-sided serifs that curve up on the outstroke. One uncommon exception to this is Hermann Zapfsmelier. Outside the regular alphabet, there are other italic types for symbols. Ampersand resembles Italic more than the Roman version. Asterisk is rotated instead of slanted. Question mark resembles a reversed Latin S. True italic styles are traditionally somewhat narrower than Roman fonts. Usage. Emphasis. Smith wasn't the only guilty party, it's true. This is called stress in speech. The titles of works that stand by themselves, such as books, albums, paintings, plays, and periodicals. He wrote his thesis on the Scarlet Letter. Works that appear within larger works, such as short stories, poems, or newspaper articles, are not italicized, but merely set off in quotation marks. When italics are unavailable, such as on a typewriter or websites that do not support formatting, an underscore or quotes are often used instead. The names of ships. The Queen Mary sailed last night. Foreign words, including the Latin binomial nomenclature in the taxonomy of living organisms. A splendid coq au vin was served. Homo sapiens. Mentioning a word as an example of a word rather than for its semantic content. The word "the" is an article, using a letter or number mentioned as itself. John was annoyed. They had forgotten the H in his name once again. When she saw her name beside the one on the rankings, she finally had proof that she was the best. Introducing or defining terms, especially technical terms, are those used in an unusual or different way. Freudian psychology is based on the egard, the superegard, and the id. An even number is one that is a multiple of 2, sometimes in novels to indicate a character's thought process. This can't be happening, thought Mary. Algebraic symbols are conventionally typeset in italics. The solution is x equals 2. Symbols for physical quantities and mathematical constants. The speed of light, c, is approximately equal to 3.00 times 108 meters per second. In biology, gene names are written in italics, whereas protein names are written in Roman type. Oblique type compared to italics. Oblique type is text that is slanted, but lacking the cursive letter forms of true italics. Many sans serif typefaces use oblique designs instead of italic ones. Some have both italic and oblique variants. Professional font designers have described the effect of using an oblique as less soft and more insistent. Almost all modern serif fonts have true italic designs, Bookman and Old Style being a notable exception. Some serif designs primarily intended for headings rather than body text are not provided with an italic Cooper Black. Engravers and some releases of Baskerville Old Style being common examples of this. In addition, computer programs may generate an italic style by simply slanting the regular style if they cannot find an italic or oblique style, though this may look awkward with serif fonts for which an italic is expected. Professional designers normally do not simply tilt fonts to generate obliques but make subtle corrections to correct the distorted curves. This introduces many font families, primarily sans serif fonts, have called the oblique fonts italic, whether or not they include true italic characteristics. Examples of typefaces offering italic designs that are actually oblique include News Gothic, Avenir, Universe, and Helvetica Neue. Sometimes, when an established sans serif design is being expanded, the newly introduced fonts are named italic to distinguish them from the older oblique designs. In these cases, the oblique font may have a different tilt angle from the italic font. For example, Universe 65 bold oblique has a smaller leaning angle than the Universe 66 bold italic. The name incline is also used to name oblique type fonts. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, a number of French and German type foundries such as Gensch and Amp Hesse offered serif typefaces with oblique rather than italic designs, but these designs have mostly disappeared. Stanley Morrison of Monotype made a late attempt to promote this style in 1925 by commissioning the typeface Perpetua from Eric Gill with a sloped Roman rather than an italic, but Monotype management vetoed the original design in favor of a true italic. More complex usage. Italics within italics. If something within a run of italics needs to be italicized itself, the type is normally switched back to non-italicized type. I think the Scarlet Letter had a chapter about that, thought Mary. Quote, in this example, the title is within an italicized thought process and therefore this title is non-italicized. It is followed by the main narrative that is outside both. It is also non-italicized and therefore not obviously separated from the former. The reader must find additional criteria to distinguish between these. Here, apart from using the attribute of italic, non-italic styles, the title also employs the attribute of capitalization. Citation styles in which book titles are italicized differ on how to deal with a book title within a book title. For example, MLA style specifies a switch back to Roman type, whereas the Chicago Manual of Style specifies the use of quotation marks. An alternative option is to switch to an upright italic style if the typeface used has one. This is discussed below. Left-leaning italics. Left-leaning italics are very rare in Latin alphabet use, where the use is mostly restricted to occasional use where an attention-grabbing effect is sought. They are more common in Arabic printing. In certain Arabic fonts, the italic font has the top of the letter leaning to the left, instead of leaning to the right. Some font families, such as Venus, Romish, Topographisches Allentafel, include left-leaning fonts and letters designed for German cartographic map production, even though they do not support Arabic characters. Quranic font style. In the 1950s, Gholam Hossein Mosahab invented the Quranic font style, a back-slanted italic form to go with the right-to-left direction of the script. Upright italics. Since italic styles clearly look different from regular styles, it is possible to have upright italic designs that have a cursive style but remain upright. In Latin script countries, upright italics are rare but are sometimes used in mathematics or in complex texts where a section of text already in italics needs a double italic style to add emphasis to it. Complex typefaces may therefore offer them as an alternative to the default conventional italic style. Fonts with upright or near-upright italics include Jan van Krimpen's Roman A, Eric Gill's Joanna, Martin Major's FF Syria and Frederick Godey's Deep Dean. As a separate stylistic decision, some arts and crafts movement-influenced printers such as Gill copied the original italic system of italic lowercase only. Some typeface families may have alternative styles of italics for different uses. Donald Knuth's Computer Modern has an alternate upright italic as an alternative to its standard italic, since its intended use is complex mathematics typesetting. The popular book typeface Bembo has been sold with two italics, one reasonably straightforward design that is commonly used today, and an alternative upright condensed italic design, far more calligraphic. As a more eccentric alternative, parentheses, the Chicago Manual of Style suggests that to avoid problems such as overlapping and unequally spaced characters, parentheses and brackets surrounding text that begins and ends in italic or oblique type should also be italicized. An exception to this rule applies when only one end of the parenthetical is italicized. In the Elements of Typographic Style, however, it is argued that since italic delimiters are not historically correct, the upright versions should always be used, while paying close attention to kerning. Substitutes in media where italicization is not possible. Alternatives are used as substitutes. In typewritten or handwritten text, underlining is typically used. In plain text computer files, including email communication, italicized words are often indicated by surrounding them with slashes or other matched delimiters. For example, I was really annoyed. They and GT, completely, and LT, forgot me. I had nothing to do with it. It was absolutely horrible. Where the italics do not indicate emphasis, but are marking a title or where a word is being mentioned or defined as a direct object, quotation marks may be substituted. The word "the" is an article. The term even number refers to a number that is a multiple of 2. The story A Sound of Thunder was written by Ray Bradbury. Web pages in HTML. The I element is used to produce italic text. When the author wants to indicate emphasized text, modern web standards recommend using the M element, because it conveys that the content is to be emphasized, even if it cannot be displayed in italics. Conversely, if the italics are purely ornamental rather than meaningful, then semantic markup practices would dictate that the author use the cascading style sheet's declaration font style, italic, along with an appropriate semantic class name instead of an I or M element.